I hope everybody is doing well today. Getting everything that you set out to get. Happy Monday. Hope you're doing well. Lori. How you doing, Lobo? It's good to see you, Boo. Matt Gooch. Always here and ready for reading on a Monday. If you were all off today, I hope you had a great off day today and did something productive. But how is everybody? Well, there's a lot of streamers on right now, so was just hanging out with Pokey Girl Jessie and Maddie G, and she was drawing some art for Jay's Mix. Did a Quaxley on an energy card, and man, let me tell you, when it comes to card art, she just doesn't set the bar like she is the bar. He just got a DPM raid. Well, good for him. I'm happy for him. Note to self, go live earlier on Monday. I should have went live early today. I didn't even think about Deep Pocket Monster. But yeah, go help him out. Hey, Mama, I'm doing well. I'm doing all right. Sean rate of 1. Well, I'll take that over a DPM rate any day, Sean. I appreciate you, brother. Well, he's going to be sometime. But that's all right. We're just going to read. Hey, Uncle Brangus. I hope you're doing well, man. Leighton Layla, lurking in the background. Honest checkup today went well, and she's slowly recovering. I'm really glad for that. I'm really glad for that, Nana Katrina. And kids, it is good to see you. Appreciate you being here and lurking, of course. I know ALB is still streaming, and that's a pretty bonkers stream. I should have planned this one better so I could be there with them, but I've been looking forward to this, so I didn't want to cancel it or push it back or move it to tomorrow because I'm off work today, and I just wanted to stick to our Mondays. So I appreciate all of you popping in and hanging out with us. It won't be too exciting of a story. We're just getting back into the Wizard of Oz. I made that decision before we get too far into our fantasy worlds. We might want to go back and do the story that we started in the beginning, which we started reading through the books of Oz, and we made it to about book number 7, which is the Patchwork Girl of Oz, and so we are going to jump right into that. Jesse Raid, what's up, Maddie? I hope you're doing well. Appreciate you coming over on the raid. All right, let me do this. Do it this way so everybody can see. Okay, boom, raid. What's up, Jay's Mix? I hope you're doing well. Welcome in, welcome in. Appreciate you, Jesse. And W Stream. Of course, I always like the art, and I am going to give you. Well, I'll wait till I see you before I give you some guidance. But yes, I appreciate you all coming in and subbing up. We are so close to that 1,000 mark. We're only like 20 away from 1,000, 24 away. Yeah, good luck on those wheel spins. Get something good, Leighton. Be there before we know it. Oh, I know it. I know it. Hey, Jimmy, how you doing? It is good to see you. Appreciate you popping in and getting ready for story time tonight. As is tradition, we always give everyone a chance to come in, grab a drink, get settled, find their favorite cozy spot by the fire, get their favorite drink, and get ready for story time. Oh, I'm in the solve stage now, Matt. So I stopped quite a while ago. Appreciate that though. Of course I said that and then I messed up. Jesse, appreciate the raid. Work reports during story time. Hey, that is quite all right. This stream was designed for those that do want to hang out, lurk, listen to a story. Appreciate you, Matt. I would have kept scrambling forever. Jesse, appreciate that. W artwork, by the way. Really enjoyed your art. I was saying earlier before you got here that you don't just set the bar, you are the bar that I'm trying to reach when it comes to the quality and precision that is the card art. So yeah, and I admire your confidence using such a blackout, like a thick outline. Like I get so self-conscious about my outlines and them not being like paper thin. And I really wish I had that confidence to put that thick cartoony, like that fat border in there, because it really makes it just pushes everything so much farther forward. It really is on the cards. But I think that adds the challenge too, because drawing on canvas is one thing, paper another thing, but adding that special layer of gloss, it's almost like they don't want us to paint on them. But yeah, what's up, Matty G? It was good to see you. We got 8 peeps here already. Thought I spilled coffee on my shirt. So yeah, we're gonna get into the Patchwork Girl of Oz, it's called. And I'm not sure how many chapters we'll do tonight. We'll have to see how many the chapters are. Yes, and just a small tip, Jesse was doing a little bit of this earlier, is that if you're ever noticing one color isn't sticking too well or it's going on almost clear or transparent, to do it anyway, stick with it, fill it up with that clear transparency color, because when you go back over it, it's then going to recognize the dried paint and not the glossy card. And so that's why we have to go back and put so many coats on it, because we're just painting the paint instead of the card now. So that is true. That is true too. I couldn't imagine the thick outline on everything you've ever done, but for the card art, I think it stands out. It gives it almost like a comic book anime feel to it. So yeah, I really liked it. More cartoony look, yeah. I want to make mine look real cartoony, and I wish I had the talent to make them look all like gruesome and grotesque, shading and creating textures with paint. It's just not something you can do in like 4 hours. That's something that could take weeks and weeks or days and days of constant painting, going through trial and error, watching it dry, removing it if you need to, covering it up, doing it again. I appreciate that, Jess. You want to know my trick? Is sometimes I'll use the Sharpie fine point to do the outline first, the rough sketch, but sometimes I'll just grab the colors I plan to use and I'll just start doing a rough outline in the paint color I plan to fill it in with. And that way, when I do the outline, I can have that color to follow it around instead of having to do it on the outside. So That's something I do as well. Oh, thanks, Mama. I appreciate that. I appreciate that, Mama Ghost. It is really good to see you. I hope you're doing well today. We're about 10 minutes after y'all, so we are going to go ahead and get on started. Ah, excellent. I love it. And yeah, I pick up a lot watching you. Things like, oh, I'll try that. Oh, me too. But yeah, I think that was the first time I've ever seen you actually like drawing something. I've either seen what you've drawn or bought what you've painted, but I've never seen you actually like doing it. So that was super cool to see. And if you want feedback, I say more of those. Do more of those. It has to almost, not only depending on what it is you're painting, but who it is you're painting it for. Hey, ET, what's going on, man? Appreciate you popping in for story time. Appreciate you dropping by the other night with the gift package. I'm looking forward to going through that with everybody on Thursday. Oh yeah, I was planning to read Rumpelstiltskin before I decided to go back to the Oz stories. Just kicking it. Okay, on Thursday, I'll make sure I'm here. What time? 7:30. So 7:30 our time. I'll be going live right after work. Get so nervous with you watching, but I'm trying to get out of my comfort zone with things. That's true. And the one little bit of advice that I do have for you, Jess, is I get the being critical with it, but you also have to recognize when good art is good art, even if it's yours. And trust me when I say, I know that's not easy. It's freezing here. Tomorrow's going to be 20 below with 50-mile-an-hour winds. Shoo, yeah. Time to come to the desert. And yeah, I believe Jessie is just about 20 shy herself of 800. Got a couple of big raids tonight on Jesse's channel, so I appreciate CTR and Double A Pokey for coming through. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for getting out of your comfort zone and choosing to share your talent with the world. Because I know that's how I found you was through your art. hmm I think the hardest thing while doing it live is trying not to rush yourself. Because believe it or not, people like myself just love sitting there and watching. Yeah, that was pretty intense. And then ALB is dealing with a DPM raid right now, so super proud of ALB. Doing a lot of membership giveaways today, so. hmm Yep, not to write. You could have easily, I know, spend another 2 hours on that and probably still not have been satisfied. Yeah, he got swamped. Yeah, I figured it's a little chaotic. One day, maybe I can get him to raid a reading stream. But that would be a dream come true because it all kind of started with Deep Pocket Monster and stumbling across the should I open it or keep it sealed. From through him, I met, Ian with Ian and Jay's Corner, and uh, not through him, but Bro Rips, I stumbled upon. So really, it all started right there with DPM. So to get rated by him would kind of be the equivalent of like Superman saving your life. Does that make sense? But do wish him the best, and yeah, congratulations, ALB. The man does so much for the community, so he certainly deserves it. All right, y'all. What I'm going to do is yes, there's a prologue here, so Here we go, y'all. Thanks for joining. This is The Patchwork Girl of Oz by Frank Baum. Affectionately dedicated to my young friend, Sumner Hamilton Burton of Chicago. Prologue. Through the kindness of Dorothy Gale of Kansas, afterward Princess Dorothy of Oz, an humble writer of the United States of America was once appointed Royal Historian of Oz, with the privilege of writing the chronicle of that wonderful fairyland. But after making 6 books about the adventures of those interesting but queer people who lived in the land of Oz, the historian learned with sorrow that by an edict of the supreme ruler, Ozma of Oz, her country would thereafter be rendered invisible to all who lived outside its borders, and that all communication with Oz would, in the future, be cut off. The children who had learned to look for books about Oz and who loved the stories about the gay and happy people inhabiting that favored country were as sorry as their historian that there would be no more books of Oz stories. They wrote many letters asking if the historian did not know of some adventures to write about that had happened before the land of Oz was shut off from all the rest of the world, but he did not know of any. Finally, one of the children inquired why we couldn't hear from Princess Dorothy by wireless telegraph, which would enable her to communicate to the historian whatever happened in the far-off land of Oz without his seeing her, or even knowing just where Oz is. That seemed a good idea, so the historian rigged up a high tower in his backyard and took lessons in wireless telegraphy till he understood it, and then began to call Princess Dorothy of Oz by sending messages into the air. Now, it wasn't likely that Dorothy would be looking for wireless messages or would heed the call, but one thing the historian was sure of, and that was that the powerful sorceress Glinda would know what he was doing and that he desired to communicate with Dorothy. For Glinda has a big book in which is recorded every event that takes place anywhere in the world, just the moment that it happens. And so, of course, the book would tell her about the wireless message. And that was the way Dorothy heard that the historian wanted to speak with her. And there was a shaggy man in the land of Oz who knew how to telegraph a wireless reply. The result was that the historian begged so hard to be told the latest news of Oz so that he could write it down for the children to read. And Dorothy asked permission of Ozma, and Ozma graciously consented. That is why, after 2 long years of waiting, another Oz story is now presented to the children of America. This would not have been possible had not some clever man invented the wireless, and the equally clever child suggesting the idea of reaching out to the mysterious land of Oz by its means. L. Frank Baum, Ozcott, at Hollywood in California. All right, looks like there's 28 chapters. And it seems they are literally all different stories. I love it. All right. Kevin, you are super. I appreciate you, Mama. That was indeed a nickname long ago. The Patchwork Girl of Oz, Chapter 1. Oh ho, and Unk Nunky. It's going to be hard to say. What's the butter, Unk Nunky? Asked Oho. Unk looked out of the window and stroked his long beard. Then he turned to the Munchkin boy and shook his head. Isn't, said he. Isn't any butter? It's too bad, Unk. Where's the jam, then? Inquired Oho, standing on a stool so he could look through all the shelves of the cupboard. But Unk Nunky shook his head again. Gone, he said. No jam either, and no cake, no jelly, no apples, nothing but bread? All, said Unk, again stroking his beard as he gazed from the window. The little boy brought the stool and sat beside his uncle, munching the dry bread slowly and seeming in deep thought. Nothing grows in our yard but bread tree, he mused. And there are only 2 more loaves on that tree, and they're not ripe yet. Tell me, Unk, why are we so poor? The old Munchkin turned and looked at Oho. He had kindly eyes, but he hadn't smiled or laughed in so long that the boy had forgotten that Unk Nunky could look any other way than solemn. And Unk never spoke any more words than he was obliged to. So this little nephew who lived alone with him had learned to understand a great deal from one word. Why are we so poor, Unk? Repeated the boy. Not, said the old Munchkin. I think we are, declared Oho. What have we got? House, said Uncle Nunky. I know, but everyone in the land of Oz has a place to live. What else, Unc? Bread. I'm eating the last loaf that's ripe. There. I've put aside your share, Unc. It's on the table. So you can eat it when you get hungry. But when that is gone, what shall we eat, Unc? The old man shifted in his chair, but merely shook his head. Of course, said Oho, who was obliged to talk because his uncle would not. No one starves in the land of Oz either. There's plenty for everyone, you know. Only, if it isn't just where you happen to be, you must go where it is. The aged Munchkin wiggled again and stared at his small nephew as if disturbed by his argument. By tomorrow morning, the boy went on, we must go where there's something to eat, or we shall grow very hungry and become very unhappy. Where? Asked Unc. Where shall we go? I don't know, I'm sure, replied Oho. But you must know, Unc. You must have traveled in your time because you're so old. I don't remember it because ever since I could remember anything, we've lived right here in this lonesome round house, with the little garden back of it, and the thick wood all around. And I've never seen the great land of Oz. Unc, dear, is the view of that mountain over at the south where they say the hammerheads live, who won't let anybody go by them, and that mountain at the north where they say nobody lives? One, declared Unc, correcting him. Ah, yes, one family lives there. I've heard. It's the crooked magician, who is named Dr. Pipt, and his wife Margaret. One year you told me about them, I think. It took you a whole year, Unc, to say as much as I've just said about the crooked magician and his wife. They lived high up on the mountain in the good Munchkin country, where the fruits and flowers grow. It's just the other side. It's funny you and I should live here all alone in the middle of the forest, isn't it? Yes, said Unc. Then let's go away and visit the Munchkin country and its jolly, good-natured people. I'd love to get a sight of something besides woods, Unc Nunky. Too little, said Unc. Why, I'm not so little as I used to be, answered the boy earnestly. I think I can walk as far and as fast through the woods as you can, Unc. And now that nothing grows in our backyard that is good to eat, we must go where the food is. Unc Nunky made no reply for a time. Then he shut down the window and turned his chair to face the room. For the sun was sinking behind the treetops. It was growing cool. By and by, Oho lit the fire, and the logs blazed freely in the broad fireplace. The two sat in the firelight a long time, the old, white-bearded Munchkin and the little boy. Both were thinking. When it grew quite dark outside, Oho said, Eat your bread, Unc, and then we will go to bed. But Unc Nunky did not eat the bread, neither did he go directly to bed. Long after his little nephew was sound asleep in the corner of his room, the old man sat by the fire, thinking. Hey, JB's Pokestop, what's up? Tamer, how's it going? It's good to see you. Appreciate the 7 of you hanging out tonight for story time. Hope you enjoyed your day. If you had the day off, I hope it was peaceful. All right, looks like we're going to be following Oho and Unc Nunky. Chapter 2, The Crooked Magician. Just at dawn, next morning, Unc Nunky laid his hand tenderly on Oho's head and awakened him. Come, he said. Oho dressed. He wore blue silk stockings, blue knee pants with gold buckles, and blue ruffled waist, and a jacket of bright blue braided with gold. His shoes were of blue leather and turned up at the toes, which were pointed. His hat had peaked crown and a flat brim, and around the brim was a row of tiny golden bells that twinkled when he moved. This was the native custom of those who inhabited the Munchkin country of the land of Oz. So Unc Nunky's dress was much like that of his nephew. Instead of shoes, the old man wore boots with turnover tops, and his blue coat had wide cuffs of gold braid. The boy noticed that his uncle had not eaten the bread, and supposed the old man had not been hungry. Oho was hungry, though, so he divided the piece of bread upon the table and ate his half for breakfast, washing it down with fresh cool water from the brook. Unc put the other piece of bread in his jacket pocket, after which he again said, as he walked out through the doorway, "Come." Oho was well pleased. He was dreadfully tired of living all alone in the woods and wanted to travel and see people. For a long time he had wished to explore the beautiful land of Oz in which they lived. When they were outside, Unc simply latched the door and started up the path. No one would disturb their little house, even if anyone came so far into the thick forest while they were gone. At the foot of the mountain that separated the country of the Munchkins from the country of the Gillikins, the path divided. One way led to the left, and the other to the right, straight up the mountain. Unc Nunkie took this right-handed path, and Oho followed without asking why. He knew it would take them to the house of the Crooked Magician, whom he had never seen, but who was their nearest neighbor. All the morning they trudged up the mountain path, and at noon, Unc and Oho sat on the fallen tree trunk and ate the last bit of bread which the old Munchkin had placed in his pocket. Then they started on again, and 2 hours later came in sight of the house of Dr. Pipt. It was a big house, round, as were all the Munchkin houses, and painted blue, which was the distinctive color of the Munchkin country of Oz. There was a pretty garden around the house, where blue trees and blue flowers grew in abundance, and in one place were beds of blue cabbages, blue carrots, and blue lettuce, all of which were delicious to eat. In Dr. Pip's garden grew bun trees, cake trees, cream puff bushes, blue buttercups, which yielded excellent blue butter, and rows of chocolate caramel plants. Paths of blue gravel divided the vegetable and flower beds, and the wider path led up to the front door. The place was in a clearing on the mountain, but the little way off was a grim forest which completely surrounded it. Unc knocked at the door of the house, and a chubby, pleasant-faced woman dressed all in blue opened it and greeted the visitors with a smile. "Ah," said Oho, "you must be Dame Margolette, the good wife of Dr. Pipt." "I am, my dear, and all strangers are welcome in my home." "May we see the famous magician, madam?" "He is very busy just now," she said, shaking her head doubtfully. "But come in, let me give you something to eat, for you must have traveled far in order to get to our lonely place." "We have," replied Oho, as he and Unc entered the house. "We have come from a far lonelier place than this." "A lonelier place?" said the Munchkin. "And in the Munchkin country?" she exclaimed. "Then it must be somewhere in the Blue Forest." "It is, good Dame Margaret." "Dear me," she said, looking at the man, "you must be Unc Nunkie, known as the Silent One." Then she looked at the boy. "And you must be Oho the Unlucky," she added. "Yes," said Unc. "I never knew I was called Unlucky," said Oho soberly, "but it is really a good name for me." "Well," remarked the woman, as she bustled around the room and set the table and brought food from the cupboard, "you were unlucky to live all alone in that dismal forest, which is much worse than the forest all around here. But perhaps your luck will change, now you are away from it. If, during your travels, you can manage to lose that un at the beginning of your name, Unlucky, you will become just Oho, the Lucky, which will be a great improvement." "But how can I lose the un, Dame Margaret?" "I do not know how, but you must keep the matter in mind, and perhaps the chance will come to you," she replied. Oho had never eaten such a fine meal in all his life. There was a savory stew smoking hot, a dish of blue peas, a bowl of sweet milk of a delicate blue tint, and a blue pudding with blue plums in it. When the visitors had eaten heartily of this fare, the woman said to them, "Do you wish to see Dr. Pipt on business or for pleasure?" Unc shook his head. "We are traveling," replied Oho, "and we stopped at your house just to rest and refresh ourselves. I do not think Unc Nunkie cares very much to see the famous Crooked Magician, but for my part I am curious to look at such a great man." The woman seemed thoughtful. "I remember that Unc Nunkie and my husband used to be friends, many years ago," she said. "So perhaps they will be glad to meet again. The magician is very busy, as I said. But if you will promise not to disturb him, you may come into his workshop and watch him prepare the wonderful charm." "Thank you," replied the boy, much pleased. "I would like to do that." She led the way to a great domed hall at the back of the house, which was the magician's workshop. There was a row of windows extending nearly around the sides of the circular room, which rendered the place very light, and there was a black door in addition to the one leading to the front part of the house. Before the row of windows, a broad seat was built, and there were some chairs and benches in the room besides. At one end stood a great fireplace, in which a blue log was blazing with a blue flame, and over the fire hung 4 kettles in a row, all bubbling and steaming at a great rate. The magician was stirring all 4 of these kettles at the same time, 2 with his hands and 2 with his feet, to the latter wooden ladles being strapped, for this man was so very crooked that his legs were as handy as his arms. Unc Nunkie came forward to greet his old friend, but not being able to shake either of his hands or his feet, which were all occupied in stirring, he patted the magician's bald head and asked, "What?" "Ah, it's the Silent One," remarked Dr. Pipt without looking up, "and he wants to know what I'm making." "Well, when it is quite finished, this compound will be a wonderful powder of life, which no one knows how to make but myself. Whenever it is sprinkled on anything, that thing will once come to life, no matter what it is. It takes me several years to make this magical powder, but at this very moment I am pleased to say it is nearly done. You see, I am making it for my good wife Margaret, who wants to use some of it for a purpose of her own. Sit down and make yourself comfortable, Unc Nunkie, and after I finish my task, I will talk to you." "You must know," said Margaret, when they were all seated together on the broad window seat, "that my husband foolishly gave away all the powder of life he first made to old Mombi the witch, who used to live in the country of the Gillikins, to the north here. Mombi gave to Dr. Pip the powder of perpetual youth in exchange for his powder of life. But she cheated him wickedly, for the powder of youth was no good and could not work no magic at all." "Perhaps the powder of life couldn't either," said Oho. "Yes, it is perfection," she declared. "The first lot we tested on our glass cat, which not only began to live, but has lived ever since. She's somewhere around the house now." "A glass cat!" exclaimed Oho, astonished. "Yes, she makes a very pleasant companion, but admires herself a little more than is considered modest. And she positively refuses to catch mice," explained Margaret. "My husband made the cat some pink brains, but they proved to be too high bred and particular for a cat, so she thinks it is undignified for her to catch mice. Also, she has a pretty blood-red heart, but it is made of stone, a ruby, I think. And so it is rather hard and unfeeling. I think the next glass cat the magician makes will have neither brains nor heart, for when I have not object to catch mice and may prove of some use to us." "What did old Mombi the witch do with the powder of life your husband gave her?" asked the boy. "She brought Jack Pumpkinhead to life, for one thing," was the reply. "I suppose you've heard of Jack Pumpkinhead. He's now living near the Emerald City, and is a great favorite with the Princess Ozma, who rules all the land of Oz." "No, I've never heard of him," remarked Oho. "I'm afraid I don't know much about the land of Oz. You see, I've lived all my life with Unc Nunkie, the Silent One, and there is no one to tell me anything." "That is one reason you are Oho the Unlucky," said the woman in a sympathetic tone. "The more one knows, the luckier he is, for knowledge is the greatest gift in life. But tell me, please, what do you intend to do with this new lot of powder of life, which Dr. Pipt is making? He said his wife wanted it for some special purpose." "So I did," she answered. "I wanted to bring my Patchwork Girl to life." "Oh, Patchwork Girl! What is that?" Oho asked, for this seemed even more strange and unusual than a glass cat. "I think I must show you my Patchwork Girl," said Margaret, laughing at the boy's astonishment, "for she is rather difficult to explain. But first I will tell you that for many years I have longed for a servant to help me with the housework and to cook the meals and to wash the dishes. No servant will come here because the place is so lonely and out of the way. So my clever husband, the crooked magician, proposed that I make a girl out of some sort of material, and he would make her live by sprinkling over her the powder of life. This seemed an excellent suggestion, and at once Dr. Pip set to work to make a new batch of his magical powder. He has been at it a long, long while. and so I have plenty of time to make the girl. Yet the task was not so easy as you may suppose. At first, I couldn't think of what to make her out of. But finally, in searching through the chests, I came across an old patchwork quilt, which my grandmother once made when she was young. What is a patchwork quilt? Asked Oho. A bed quilt made of patches of different kinds of colors and cloth, all neatly sewn together. The patches are of all shapes and sizes, so a patchwork quilt is a very pretty and gorgeous thing to look at. Sometimes it is called a crazy quilt because the patches and colors are so mixed up. We never have used my grandmother's many-colored patchwork quilt, handsome as it is, so we munchkins do not care for any other color than blue. So it has been packed away in the chest for about 100 years when I found it. I said to myself that it would do nicely for my servant girl. For when she was brought to life, she would not be proud or haughty, as the glass cat is, for sure. A dreadful mixture of colors would discourage her from trying to be as dignified as the blue munchkins are. Is blue the only respectable color, then? Inquired Oho. Yes, for a munchkin. All our country is blue, you know, but in other parts of Oz, people favor different colors. At the Emerald City, where our Princess Ozma lives, green is the popular color. But all munchkins prefer blue to anything else, and when my houseware girl is brought to life, she will find herself to be so many unpopular colors that she will never dare to be rebellious or impudent, as servants are sometimes liable to be when they are made the same way as their mistresses are. Unc Nunky nodded in approval. Good idea, he said. And that was a long speech for Unc Nunky because it was 2 words. So I cut up the quilt, continued Margaret, and made from it a very well-shaped girl, which I stuffed with cotton wadding. I will show you what a good job I did. And she went to a tall cupboard and threw open the doors. Then back she came, lugging in her arms the patchwork girl, which she set upon the bench and propped up so that the figure would not tumble over. Interesting. I hope my voices don't hurt anybody or make it annoying. I didn't realize she was going to talk so much, so but I want to differentiate while I'm talking so y'all know who's talking. Chapter 3. The Patchwork Girl. Oho examined this curious contrivance with wonder. The Patchwork Girl was taller than he. When she stood upright, and her body was plump and rounded because it had been so neatly stuffed with cotton. Margaret had first made the girl's form from the patchwork quilt, and then she had dressed it with the patchwork skirt and an apron with pockets in it, using the same gay material throughout. Upon the feet, she had sewn a pair of red leather shoes with pointed toes. All the fingers and thumbs of the girl's hand had been carefully formed and stuffed and stitched at the edges, with gold plates at the ends to serve as fingernails. She will have to work when she comes to life, said Margaret. The head of the patchwork girl was the most curious part of her. While she waited for her husband to finish making his powder of life, the woman had found ample time to complete the head as her fancy dictated, and she realized that a good servant's head must be properly constructed. The hair was a brown yarn and hung down on her neck in several neat braids. Her eyes were 2 silver suspender buttons cut from a pair of magician's old trousers, and they were sewn on with black thread, which formed the pupils of the eyes. Margaret had puzzled over the ears for some time, for these were important if the servant was to hear distinctly. But finally she made them out of thin plates of gold and attached them in place by means of stitches through tiny holes bored in the metal. Gold is the most common metal in the land of Oz and is used for many purposes because it is soft and pliable. The woman had cut a slit for the patchwork girl's mouth and sewn 2 rows of white pearls in it for teeth, using a strip of scarlet plush for her tongue. This mouth Oho considered very artistic and lifelike, and Margaret was pleased when the boy praised it. There were almost too many patches on the face of the girl for her to be considered strictly beautiful, For one cheek was yellow, the other red, her chin blue, her forehead purple, and the center where her nose had been formed and padded a bright yellow. You ought to have had her face all pink, suggested the boy. I suppose so, but I have no pink cloth, replied the woman. Still, I cannot see as it matters much, for I wish my patchwork girl to be useful rather than ornamental. If I get tired looking at her patched face, I can whitewash it. Has she any brains? Asked Oho. No, I forgot all about the brains, exclaimed the woman. I am glad you reminded me of them, for it is not too late to supply them by any means. Until she is brought to life, I can do anything I please with this girl. But I must be careful not to give her too much brains, and those she has must be such as are fitted to the station she is to occupy in life. In other words, her brains mustn't be very good. Wrong, said Unc Nunkie. No, I'm sure I'm right about that, returned the woman. He means, replied Oho, that unless your servant has good brains, she won't know how to obey you properly, nor do the things you ask her to do. Well, that may be true, agreed Margaret. But on the contrary, a servant with too much brains is sure to become independent, and high and mighty, and feel above her work. This is a very delicate task, as I said, and I must take care to give the girl just the right quantity of the right sort of brains. I want her to know just enough, but not too much. With this, she went to another cupboard, which was filled with more shelves. All the shelves were lined with blue glass bottles, neatly labeled by the magician to show what they contained. One whole shelf was marked brain furniture, and the bottles on the shelf were labeled as follows: obedience, cleverness, judgment, courage, ingenuity, and amiability, learning, truth, posy, self-reliance. Let me think, said Margaret. Of those qualities, she must have obedience, first of all. And she took down the bottle bearing that label and poured from it upon a dish several grains of the contents. And malleability is also good in truth. She poured it into the dish in quantity from each of these bottles. I think that will do, she continued, for the other qualities are not needed in a servant. Unc Nunkie, who with Oho stood beside her, touched a bottle marked cleverness. Little, said he. A little cleverness? Well, perhaps you're right, sir, said she, and was about to take down the bottle when the crooked magician suddenly called to her excitedly from the fireplace. Quick, Margaret, come and help me. She ran to her husband's side at once and helped him lift the 4 kettles from the fire. Their contents had all boiled away, leaving in the bottom of each kettle a few grains of a fine white powder. Very carefully, the magician removed this powder, placing it all together in a golden dish, where he mixed it with a golden spoon. When the mixture was complete, there was scarcely a handful, all told. That, said Dr. Pip, in a pleased and triumphant tone, is the wonderful powder of life, which I alone in the world know how to make. It has taken me nearly 6 years to prepare these precious grains of dust, but the little heap on the dish is worth the price of a kingdom, and many a king would give all he has to possess it. When it has become cooled, I will place it in a small bottle, but meantime I must watch it carefully, lest a gust of wind blow it away or scatter it. Unc Nunkie, Margaret, and the magician all stood looking at the marvelous powder, but Oho was more interested just then in the Patchwork Girl's brains. Thinking it both unfair and unkind to deprive her of any good qualities that were handy, the boy took down every bottle on the shelf and poured some of the contents in Margaret's dish. No one saw him do this, for all were looking at the powder of life. But soon the woman remembered what she had been doing and came back to the cupboard. Oh, let's see, she remarked. I was about to give my girl a little cleverness, which is the doctor's substitute for intelligence. The quality he has not yet learned how to manufacture. Taking down the bottles of cleverness, she added some of the powder to the heap on the dish. Oho became a bit uneasy at this, for he had already put quite a lot of cleverness powder into the dish, but he dared not interfere, so he comforted himself with the thought that one cannot have too much cleverness. Margaret now carried the dish of brains to the bench, ripping the seam of the patch On the girl's forehead, she placed the powder within the head and then sewed up the seam as neatly and securely as before. My girl is all ready for your powder of life, my dear, she said to her husband, but the magician replied, This powder must not be used before tomorrow morning, but I think it is now cool enough to be bottled. He selected a small gold bottle with a pepper box top so that the powder might be sprinkled on any object through the small holes. Very carefully, he placed the powder of life in the gold bottle and then locked it up in a drawer of his cabinet. At last, said he, rubbing his hands together gleefully, I have ample leisure for a good talk with my old friend Uncle Nunky. So let us sit down cozily and enjoy ourselves. After stirring those 4 kettles for 6 years, I am glad to have a little rest. You will have to do most of the talking, said Oho, for Unk is called the Silent One and uses few words. I know, but that renders your uncle most agreeable companion in gossip, declared Dr. Pipt. Most people talk too much, so it is a relief to find one who talks too little. Oho looked at the magician with much awe and curiosity. Don't you find it very annoying to be so crooked? He asked. No, I'm quite proud of my person, was the reply. I suppose I am the only crooked magician in all the world. Some others are accused of being crooked, but I am the only genuine one. He was really very crooked, and Oho wondered how he managed to do so many things with such a twisted body. When he sat down upon the crooked chair that had been made to fit him, one knee was under his chin and the other near the small of his back. But he was a cheerful man, and his face bore a pleasant and agreeable expression. I am not allowed to perform magic except for my own amusement, he told his visitors as he lighted a pipe with a crooked stem and began to smoke. Too many people were working magic in the land of Oz, and so our lovely Princess Ozma put a stop to it. I think she was quite right. There were several wicked witches who caused a lot of trouble. But now that they are all out of business and only a great sorceress, Glenda the Good, is permitted to practice her arts, which never harm anybody. The Wizard of Oz, who used to be a humbug and knew no magic at all, has been taking lessons of Glenda, and I am told he is getting to be a pretty good wizard. But he is merely the assistant of the great sorceress. I have the right to make a servant girl for my wife, you know, or a glass cat to catch our mice, which she refuses to do, but I am forbidden to work magic for others or use it as a profession. Magic must be very interesting study, said Oho. It truly is, asserted the magician. In my time, I've performed some magical feats that were worthy of the skills of Glenda the Good. For instance, there is the powder of life, and my liquid of petrification, which is contained in that bottle on the shelf yonder, over the window. What does the liquid of petrification do? Inquired the boy. Turns everything it touches to solid marble. It's an invention of my own, and I find it very useful. Once 2 of those dreadful Kalidas, with bodies like bears and heads like tigers, came here from the forest to attack us. But I sprinkled some of that liquid on them, and instantly they turned to marble. I now use them as ornamental statuary in my garden. This table looks to you like wood, and once it really was wood, but I sprinkled a few drops of the liquid of petrification on it, and now it is marble. It will never break nor wear out. Fine, said Uncle Nunky, wagging his beard and stroking his long gray finger. Wagging his head and stroking his long gray beard. Dear me, what a chatterbox you are getting to be, Unc, remarked the magician, who was pleased with the compliment. But just then there came a scratching at the back door, and a shrill voice cried, Let me in! Hurry up, can't you? Let me in! Margaret got up and went to the door. Ask like a good cat, then, she said. Meow, wow, wow. There, does that suit your royal highness? Asked the voice in a scornful accents. Yes, that's the proper cat talk, declared the woman, and opened the door. At once a cat entered, came to the center of the room, and stopped short of the sight of the strangers. Oho and Unk Nunky both stared at it with wide eyes, for surely no one curious creature had ever existed before, even in the land of Oz. I'm assuming it's the glass cat. Extra Psyduck so far. Let's go. Oh, hi, JB. Hi, Jesse. Loved your art. Hello, Mama Ghost. Hope you're doing well. I appreciate everybody being here. We're just burning through this book. I kind of like it. It's kind of different stories, split up into different chapters, but following the same two characters is kind of nice. What I'm going to do is refresh my coffee real quick, and I will be right back. But thank you all so very much for being here. 17 likes, got 8 people, about just shy of an hour into it. Oh, and I hope you're all enjoying the story as well. I have a feeling that we're going to start seeing some crazy stuff. It's actually quite cool that they're referencing history of monsters and beasts in different lands that we got to learn about in all the other books that we read so far. All right. Thank you all. Appreciate you. Coffee is life. You are not wrong. You are not wrong. All right. Let's go ahead and read about the Glass Cat, Chapter 4. Oops. Only downside about having the mustache is I often drip coffee on myself. Oh, I hope you feel better, Mrs. 5150. The Glass Cat. The cat was made of glass, so clear and transparent that you could see through it as easily as through a window. In the top of his head, however, was a mass of delicate pink balls which looked like jewels, and it had a heart made of blood-red ruby. The eyes were 2 large emeralds, but aside from these colors, all the rest of the animal was clear glass, and it had a spun glass tail that was really beautiful. "Well, Doc Pip, do you mean to introduce us or not?" demanded the cat, in a tone of annoyance. "Seems to me you're forgetting your manners." "Excuse me," returned the magician. "This is Unc Nunky, the descendant of the former kings of the Munchkin before this country became part of the Land of Oz." "He needs a haircut," observed the cat, washing its face. "True," replied Unc, with a low chuckle of amusement. "But he has lived alone in the heart of the forest for many years," the magician explained, "and, although that is a barbarous country, there are no barbers there." "Who is the dwarf?" asked the cat. "That is not a dwarf, but a boy," answered the magician. "You have never seen a boy before. He is now small because he is young. With more years he will grow big and become tall as Unc Nunky." "Oh, is that magic?" the glass animal inquired. "Yes, but it is nature's magic, which is more wonderful than any art known to man. For instance, my magic made you, and made you live. And it is a poor job because you are useless and a bother to me. But I can't make you grow. You will always be the same size, and the same saucy, inconsiderate glass cat with pink brains and a hearty ruby heart." "No one can regret more than I the fact that you made me," asserted the cat, crouching upon the floor and slowly swaying its spun glass tail from side to side. "Your world is a very uninteresting place. I've wandered through your gardens and in the forest until I am tired of it all. And when I come into the house, the conversation of your fat wife and yourself bores me dreadfully." "That is because I gave you different brains from those of ourselves possess."
and much too good for a cat," returned Dr. Pip.
Can't you take 'em out then, and replace them with pebbles so I wouldn't feel above my station in life?" asked the cat pleadingly.
"Perhaps so. I'll try it, after I've brought the Patchwork Girl to life,"
he said. The cat walked up to the bench on which the Patchwork Girl reclined and looked at her attentively.
"Are you going to make that dreadful thing live?"
"Oh, Oh, the cat is female. My bad," she asked. The magician nodded.
"It is intended to be my wife's servant maid," he said. "When she is alive she will do all of our work and mind the house, but you are not to order her around, bungle as you do us. You must treat the Patchwork Girl respectfully."
"I won't. I couldn't respect such a bundle of scraps under any circumstances."
"If you don't, there will be more scraps than you would like."
If you don't, then there will be more scrapes than you would like," cried Margolette angrily.
"Why?"
"Didn't you make her pretty to look at?" Why didn't you make her pretty to look at?" asked the cat. "You made me pretty, very pretty indeed, and I love to watch my pink brains roll around when you are working, and to see my precious red heart beat." She went to a long mirror as she said this, and stood before it, looking at herself with an air of much pride.
"But the poor patch thing will hate herself when she's once alive," continued the cat. If I were you, I'd use her for a mop and make another servant that is prettier."
"You have a perverted taste," snapped Margolette, much annoyed at this frank criticism. "I think the Patchwork Girl is beautiful, considering what she's made of. Even the rainbow hasn't as many colors, and you must admit that the rainbow is a pretty thing." The glass cat yawned and stretched herself upon the floor. "Have it your own way," she said. "I'm sorry for the Patchwork Girl, that's all." Oho and Unc Nunky slept that night in the magician's house, and the boy was glad to stay because he was anxious to see the Patchwork Girl brought to life. The glass cat was also a wonderful creature to little Oho, who had never seen or known anything of magic before, although he lived in the fairyland of Oz ever since he was born. Back there in the woods, nothing unusual ever happened. Unc Nunky, who might have been king of the Munchkins, and had not his people united with all the other countries of Oz and acknowledged Ozma as their sole ruler, had retired into his forgotten forest nook with his baby nephew, and they had lived all alone there. Only that the neglected garden had failed to grow food for them. They would always have lived in the solitary blue forest, but now they have started out to mingle with other people, and the first place they came to proved so interesting that Oho could scarcely sleep a wink all night. Margaret was an excellent cook and gave them a fine breakfast. While they all engaged in eating, the good woman said, "This is the last meal I shall have to cook for some time, for right after breakfast Dr. Pip has promised to bring my new servant to life. I shall let her wash the breakfast dishes and sweep and dust the house. What a relief that will be!"
"It will indeed relieve you of much drudgery," said the magician. "By the way, Margaret, I thought I saw you getting some brains from the cupboard while I was very busy with my kettles. What qualities have you given your new servant?"
"Only those that our humble servant requires," she answered. "I do not wish to have her feel above her station as the glass cat does. That would make her discontented and unhappy. For, of course, she must always be a servant." Oho was somewhat disturbed as he listened to this, and the boy began to fear he had done wrong in adding all those different qualities of brain to the lot Margaret had prepared for the servant. But it was too late now for regret, since all the brains were securely sewn up inside the Patchwork Girl's head. He might have confessed what he had done, and thus allowed Margaret and her husband to change the brains, but he was afraid of incurring their anger. He believed that Unc had seen him add to the brains, and Unc had not said a word against it. But then Unc never did say anything unless it was absolutely necessary. As soon as breakfast was over, they all went to the magician's big workshop where the glass cat was laying before the mirror, and the Patchwork Girl lay limp and lifeless on the bench.
"Now then," said Dr. Pip in a brisk tone, "we shall perform one of the greatest feats of magic possible to man. Even in this marvelous land of Oz, in no other country could it be done at all. I think we ought to have a little music while this Patchwork Girl comes to life. It is pleasant to reflect that the first sounds her golden ears will hear will be delicious music."
As he spoke, he went to the phonograph, which screwed fast to a small table, and wound up the spring of the instrument and adjusted the big gold horn. The music my servant will usually hear," remarked Margaret, "will be my orders to do her work. But I see no harm in allowing her to listen to this unseen band while she awakens. Listen to this unseen band while she awakens to her first realization of life. My orders will beat the band afterward." The phonograph was now playing a stirring march tune, and the magician unlocked his cabinet and took out the little gold bottle containing the powder of life. They all bent over the bench on which the Patchwork Girl reclined. Unc Nunkie and Margaret stood behind near the windows, Oho at one side of the magician in front, where he would have the freedom to sprinkle the powder. The glass cat came near too, curious to watch the important scene.
"All ready?"
asked Dr. Pep. "All is ready," answered his wife. So the magician leaned over and shook from the bottle some grains of the wonderful powder, and they fell directly on the Patchwork Girl's head and arms. Oh, end of the chapter. Extra avocado. I hope you're doing well. What's going on, Johnny Knight? Mystic, what's going on? Ironically, Mystic, it's breakfast blend. I drink breakfast blend all day. It is really good to see you all. We are reading The Patchwork Girl of Oz by L. Frank Baum, who is a official historian of the land of Oz, and, well, I think I'm turning into quite the historian myself. That's good coffee. Chapter 5. Uh-oh. A terrible accident. 24 subscribers left to 1K. Only 24. It's right there. It's itching. Terrible accident. Good story. It is a good story. I agree.
"It will take a few minutes for this powder to do its work,"
remarked the magician, sprinkling the body up and down with much care. But suddenly the Patchwork Girl threw up one arm, which knocked the bottle of powder from the crooked man's hand and sent it flying across the room. Unc Nunkie and Margaret were so startled that they both leaped backwards and bumped together, and Unc's head joggled the shelf above them and upset the bottle containers of liquid petrification. The old magician uttered such a wild cry that Oho jumped away at the Patchwork Girl, sprang after him, and clapped her stuffed arms around him in terror. The glass cat snarled and hid under the table, and so it was that when the powerful liquid of petrification was spilled, it only fell upon the wife of the magician and the uncle of Oho. With these two, the charm worked promptly. They stood motionless and stiff as marble statues, in exactly the positions they were in when the liquid struck them. Oho pushed the Patchwork Girl away and ran to Unc Nunkie, filled with the terrible fear that the only friend and protector he has ever known. When he grasped Unc's hand, it was cold and hard. Even the long gray beard was solid marble. The crooked magician was dancing around the room in a frenzy of despair, calling upon his wife to forgive him, to speak to him, to come to life again. The Patchwork Girl, quickly recovering from her fright, now came nearer and looked from one to another of the people with deep interest. Then she looked at herself and laughed. Noticing the mirror, she stood before it and examined her extraordinary features with amazement. Her button eyes, pearl bead teeth, and puffy nose, and addressing her reflection in the glass, she exclaimed, "Whee, but there's a gaudy dame! Makes a paint box blush with shame. Razzle dazzle, fizzle fazzle, howdy do, miss, what's your name?" She bowed, and the reflection bowed. Then she laughed again, long and merrily, and the glass cat crept out from under the table and said, "I don't blame you for laughing at yourself. Aren't you horrid?" "Horrid?" she replied. "Why, I'm thoroughly delightful. I'm an original, if you please, and therefore incomparable. Of all the comic, absurd, rare, and amusing creatures the world contains, I must be the supreme freak. Who but poor Margaret could have managed to invent such an unreasonable being as I? But I'm glad. I'm awfully glad, and I'm just what I am and nothing else. Be quiet, will you?" Uh,
"Be quiet, will you?" cried the frantic magician. Be quiet and let me think. If I don't think, I shall go mad.
Think ahead, said the Patchwork Girl, seating herself in a chair. Think all you want to. I don't mind. Ah, gee, but I'm tired. Gee, but I'm tired playing that tune, called the phonograph, speaking through its horn in a brazen, scratchy voice.
If you don't mind, Pipped, old boy, I'll cut it out and take a rest.
The magician looked gloomily at the music machine.
What dreadful luck, he wailed despondently. The powder of life must have fallen on the phonograph.
He went up to it and found that the gold bottle that had contained the precious powder had dropped upon the stand and scattered its life-giving grains over the machine. The phonograph was very much alive, and began dancing a jig with its legs of the table to which it was attached. And this dance so annoyed Dr. Pip that he kicked the thing to the corner and pushed a bench against it to hold it quiet.
You were bad enough before, said the magician resentfully, but a live phonograph is enough to drive every sane person in the land of Oz stark crazy.
And no insults, please, answered the phonograph in a surly tone.
You did it, my boy. Don't blame me.
You've bungled everything, Dr. Pip, added the Glass Cat contemptuously. Except me, said the Patchwork Girl, jumping up to whirl merrily around the room. I think, said Oho, almost ready to cry through grief over Nunkey's fate.
It must be all my fault in some way. I'm called Oho the Unlucky, you know.
That's nonsense, Kitty, retorted the Patchwork Girl cheerfully. No one can be unlucky who has the intelligence to direct his own actions. The unlucky ones are the ones who beg for a chance to think, like poor Dr. Pip here. What's the row about, anyway, Mr. Magic Maker?
The liquid of petrification was accidentally fallen upon my dear wife and Nunkey and turned them into marble,
he sadly replied. Well, why don't you sprinkle some of that powder on them and bring them to life again? Asked the Patchwork Girl. The magician gave a jump.
Why, I hadn't thought of that,
he joyfully cried, and grabbed up the golden bottle, with which he ran to Margaret. Said the Patchwork Girl. Higgledy-piggledy-dee, what fools magicians be! His head's so thick he can't think quick, so he takes advice from me. Standing upon the bench, for he was so crooked he could not reach the top of his wife's head in any other way, Dr. Pip began shaking the bottle, but not a grain of powder came out. He pulled off the cover, glanced within, and then threw the bottle from him in a wail of despair.
Gone! Gone! Every bit gone!
He cried.
Wasted on that miserable phonograph, when it might have saved my dear wife.
Then the magician bowed his head on his crooked arms and began to cry. Oho was sorry for him. He went up to the sorrowful man and said softly, You can make more powder of life, Dr. Pip.
Yes, but it will take me 6 years, 6 long, weary years of stirring 4 kettles with both feet and both hands,
was the agonized reply.
6 years, while poor Margaret stands watching me as a marble statue.
Can't anything else be done? Asked the Patchwork Girl. The magician shook his head, then he seemed to remember something and looked up.
There is one other compound that would destroy the magic spell of the liquid of petrification and restore my wife and Nunkey to life, said he. It may be hard to find the things I need to make this magic compound, but if they were found, I could do it in an instant what will otherwise take 6 long, weary years of stirring kettles with both hands and both feet.
All right, let's find the things then, suggested the Patchwork Girl. That seems a lot more sensible than those stirring times with the kettles. That's the idea, Scraps, said the Glass Cat approvingly. I'm glad to find you have decent brains. Mine are exceptionally good. You can't see them work, they're pink. Scraps? Repeated the girl. Did you call me Scraps? Is that my name?
I believe my poor wife intended to name you Angeline, said the magician.
But I like Scraps best, she replied with a laugh. It fits me better, for my patchwork is all scraps and nothing else. Thank you for naming me, Miss Cat. Have you a name of your own? I have a foolish name that Margaret once gave me, but which is quite undignified for one of my such importance, answered the cat. She called me Bungle.
Yes, sighed the magician, you were a sad bungle. Taken all in all, I was wrong to make you as I did, for a more useless, conceited, and brittle thing never before existed.
I'm not so brittle as you think, retorted the cat. I've been alive a good many years, for Dr. Pip experimented on me with this first magic powder of life he ever made, and so far I've never broken or cracked or chipped any part of me. You seem to have a chip in your shoulder. A chip on your shoulder, laughed the Patchwork Girl, and the cat went to the mirror to see. Tell me, pleaded Oho, speaking to the crooked magician, what must we find to make the compound that will save Unk Nunky? First, was the reply,
I must have 6-leaved clover. That can only be found in the green country around the Emerald City, and 6-leaved clovers are very scarce even there.
I'll find it for you, promised Oho.
The next thing, continued the magician, is the left wing of a yellow butterfly. That color can only be found in the yellow country of the Winkies, west of the Emerald City.
I'll find it, declared Oho. Is that all?
Oh, no. I'll get my book of recipes and see what comes next.
Saying this, the magician unlocked a drawer of his cabinet and drew out a small book covered with blue leather. Looking through the pages, he found the recipe he wanted and said,
I must have a gill of water from my dark well.
What kind of well is that, sir? Asked the boy.
One where the light of day never penetrates. The water must be put in a gold bottle and brought to me without light ever touching it.
I'll get the water from the dark well, said Oho.
Then I must have 3 hairs from the tip of a woozy's tail and a drop of oil from a live man's body.
Oho looked grave at this. What is a woozy, please? He inquired.
Some sort of animal. I've never seen one, so I can't describe it,
replied the magician. If I can find a woozy, I'll get the hairs from its tail, said Oho. But is there ever any oil in a man's body? The magician looked at the book again to make sure.
That's what the recipe calls for,
he replied.
And of course we must get everything that is called for, or the charm won't work. The book doesn't say blood, it says oil, and there must be oil somewhere in a live man's body, or the book wouldn't ask for it.
All right, returned Oho, trying not to feel discouraged. I'll try to find it. The magician looked at the little munchkin boy in a doubtful way and said,
All this will mean a long journey for you. Perhaps several long journeys, for you must search through several of the different countries of Oz in order to get the things I need.
I know it, sir, but I must do my best to save Unk Nunky.
And also my poor wife, Margaret. If you save one, you will save the other, for both stand there together, and the same compound will restore them both to life. Do the best you can, Oho, and while you are gone, I shall begin the 6 years' job of making a new batch of the powder of life. Then, if you should unluckily fail to secure any one of the things I need, I will have lost no time. But if you succeed, you must return here as quickly as you can, and that will save me much tiresome stirring for 4 kettles with both feet and both hands.
I will start on my journey at once, sir, said the boy. And I'll go with you, declared the Patchwork Girl.
No, no, exclaimed the magician. You have no right to leave this house. You are only a servant and have not been discharged.
Scraps, who had been dancing up and down the room, stopped and looked at him. What's a servant? She asked.
One who serves. A sort of slave, he exclaimed.
Very well, said the Patchwork Girl. I'm going to serve you and your wife by helping Oho find the things you need. You need a lot, you know, such as are not easily found.
It is true, sighed Dr. Pip. I am well aware that Oho has undertaken a serious task.
Scraps laughed and resumed her dance. She said, Here's a job for a boy of brains, a drop of oil from a live man's veins, a 6-leaf clover, 3 nice hairs from a woozy's tail, the book declares, are needed for a magic spell, and water from a pitch-dark well. The yellow wing of a butterfly you must, Oho, also try. And if he gets them without harm, Doc Pip will make the magic charm, but if he doesn't get them, Unk will always stand a marble chunk. The magician looked at her thoughtfully.
Poor Margaret must have given you some of the quality of posies by mistake, he said, and if that is true, I didn't make a very good article when I prepared it, or else it or else you've gotten an overdose or an underdose. However, I believe I shall let you go with Oho, for my poor wife will not need your services until she is restored to life. Also, I think you may be able to find to help the boy, for your head seems to contain some thoughts I did not expect to find in it. But be very careful of yourself. For your souvenir of my dear Margaret, try not to get ripped, or your stuffing may fall out. One of your eyes seems loose, and you may have to sew it on tighter. If you talk too much, you wear out your scarlet plush tongue, which ought to have been hemmed on the edges, and remember you belong to me, and must return here as soon as your mission is accomplished.
I'm going with Scraps and Oho, announced the glass cat.
You can't,
replied the magician. Why not?
You'd get broken in no time, and you couldn't be a bit of use to the boy and Patchwork girl.
I beg to differ with you, returned the cat in a haughty tone. 3 heads are better than 2, and my pink brains are beautiful. You can see 'em work.
Well, go along, said the magician irritably. You're only an annoyance anyhow, and I'm glad to get rid of you.
Thank you for nothing, then, answered the cat stiffly. Dr. Pip took a small basket from a cupboard and packed several things in it. He handed it to Oho.
Here's some food and a bundle of charms, he said. It is all I can give you, but I'm sure you will find friends on your journey who will assist you in your search. Take care of the Patchwork girl and bring her safely back, for she ought to prove useful to my wife. As for the glass cat, properly named Bungle, if she bothers you, I now give you my permission to break her in two, for she is not respectful and does not obey me. I made a mistake in giving her the pink brains, you see.
Then Oho went to Unk Nunkie and kissed the old man's marble face very tenderly.
I'm going to try to save you, Unk,
he said, just as if the marble image could hear him. And then he shook the crooked hand of the crooked magician, who was already busy hanging the 4 kettles in the fireplace and picking up his basket left in the house. And picking up his basket, left the house. Really needs a comma. The Patchwork girl followed him, and after them came the glass cat. Hey, Eric Ribs, how's it going, fam? It's good to see you. We're just reading through the Patchwork Girl of Oz, and well, they're about to start their journey through all the countries of Oz, and I hope to run into some of our old friends like the Scarecrow and the Tin Man. Lori! It's good to see you, Boo. Hope you're doing well. Got 23 likes on the stream, 13 people watching. Appreciate you guys. Probably be going for another, I would say, 45 minutes to an hour. We'll read a little bit more. Chapter 6, The Journey. Oho had never traveled before, and so he only knew that the path down the mountainside led to the open Munchkin country, where large numbers of people dwelt. Scraps was quite new and not supposed to know anything of the land of Oz, while the glass cat admitted that she never wandered very far away from the magician's house. There was only one path before them at the beginning, so they could not miss their way. And for a time they walked through the thick forest in silent thought, each one impressed with the importance of the adventure they had undertaken. Suddenly, the Patchwork girl laughed. It was funny to see her laugh because her cheeks wrinkled up, her nose tipped, her silver button eyes twinkled, and her mouth curled at the corners in a comical way. Sorry, y'all, I started feeling really sick. Just give me a second. Just give me 1 second. Sorry about that, y'all. Oh boy. Darker Bunnies, how's it going? Hello, the besto. I am okay, yes. I'm sorry. I just suddenly had this feeling in my stomach and started sweating. Just needed a little water. But yes, I'm doing all right. Kinda. I was just sitting here and suddenly I was overwhelmed with like this sickness. But yeah, I'm okay. I'm all right. Gonna finish what we set out to do. But no, I'm feeling much better. But I hope you're doing well, Darker Bunnies. It's good to see you. All right. All right, beautiful. Let's see, where was I? If it's all right with everybody. Oh, I will. I will for sure. We're going to read one more chapter and then we'll call it. Oh, man. If it's all right with y'all, I'm going to just go ahead and start this one over. I appreciate you, Mama. I'm okay. I am all right. I'm not sure what that was. Oh, no, I'm good. I'm good. I got one more in me. No, I appreciate you guys. Just a good remember, stay hydrated, y'all. But let's start this one over. Chapter 6, The Journey. Oho had never traveled before, and so he only knew that the path down to the mountainside led to the open Munchkin country, where large numbers of people dwelt. Scraps was quite new and not supposed to know anything of the land of Oz, while the glass cat admitted she never wandered very far away from the magician's house. There was only one path before them at the beginning, so they could not miss their way, and for a time they walked through the thick forest in silent thought, each one impressed with the importance of the adventure they had undertaken. Suddenly, the Patchwork Girl laughed. It was funny to see her laugh, because her cheeks wrinkled up, her nose tipped, her silver button eyes twinkled, and her mouth curled at the corners in a comical way. "Has something pleased you?" asked Oho, who was feeling solemn and joyless through thinking upon his uncle's sad fate. "Yes," she inquired, or she answered, "your world pleases me, for it's a queer world, and in its life in it is queerer still. Here I am, made from an old bed quilt, and intended to be a slave to Margaret, rendered free as air by an accident that none of you could have foreseen. I am enjoying life and seeing the world, while the woman who made me is standing helpless as a block of wood. If that isn't funny enough to laugh at, I don't know what is." "You're not seeing much of the world yet, my poor innocent Scraps," remarked the cat. "The world doesn't consist wholly of the trees that you are. It does not consist wholly of the trees that are on all sides of us." "But they are part of it. And aren't they pretty trees?" returned Scraps, bobbing her head until her brown yarn curls fluttered in the breeze. "Growing between them I can see lovely ferns and wild flowers and soft green mosses. If the rest of your world is half as beautiful, I should be glad I'm alive." "I don't know what the rest of the world is like, I'm sure," said the cat, "but I mean to find out." "I have never been out of the forest," Oho added, "but to me the trees are gloomy and sad and the wildflowers seem lonesome. It must be nicer where there are no trees and there is room for lots of people to live together." "I wonder if any of the people we shall meet will be as splendid as I am," said the Patchwork Girl. "All I have seen so far have pale, colorless skin and clothes as blue as the country they live in, while I am of many gorgeous colors, face and body and clothes. That is why I am bright and contented, Oho, while you are blue and sad." "I think I've made a mistake in giving you so many sorts of brains," observed the boy. "Perhaps, as the magician said, you have an overdose, and they may not agree with you." "What had you to do with my brains?" asked Scraps. "A lot," replied Oho. "Old Margaret meant to give you only a few, just enough to keep you going, but when she wasn't looking, I added a good many more, of the best kinds I could find in the magician's cupboard." "Thanks," said the girl, dancing along the path ahead of Oho and then dancing back to his side. "If the few brains are good, many brains must be better." "But they ought to have been evenly balanced," said the boy, "and I had no time to be careful. From the way you're acting, I guess the dose was badly mixed." "Scraps hasn't enough brains to hurt her, so don't worry," remarked the cat, which was trotting along in a very dainty and graceful manner. "The only brains worth considering are mine, which are pink. You can see 'em work." After walking a long time, they came to a little brook that trickled across the path, and here Oho sat down to rest and eat something from his basket. He found that the magician had given him a part of the loaf of bread and a slice of cheese. He broke off some of the bread and was surprised to find the loaf just as large as it was before. It was the same way with the cheese. However much he broke off from the slice, it remained exactly the same size. "Ah," said he, nodding wisely, "that's magic. Dr. Pipt has enchanted the bread and cheese so that it will last me all through my journey, however much I eat." "Why do you put those things in your mouth?" asked Scraps, gazing at him in astonishment. "Do you need more stuffing? Then why don't you just use cotton, such as I'm stuffed with?" "I don't need that kind," said Oho. "But a mouth is to talk with, isn't it?" "It is also to eat with," replied the boy. "If I didn't put food into my mouth and eat it, I would get hungry and starve." "Ah, I didn't know that," she said. "Give me some." Oho handed her a bit of bread, and she put it in her mouth. "What's next?" she asked, scarcely able to speak. "Chew it and swallow it," said the boy. Scraps tried that. Her pearl teeth were unable to chew the bread, and beyond her mouth there was no opening. Being unable to swallow, she threw away the bread and laughed. "I must get hungry and starve, for I can't eat," she said. "Neither can I," announced the cat, "but I am not fool enough to try. Can't you understand that you and I are superior people and not made like these poor humans?" "Why should I understand that or anything else?" asked the girl. "I don't bother my head by asking conundrums. I beg you, just let me discover myself in my own way." With this, she began amusing herself by leaping across the brook and back again. "Be careful, or you'll fall in the water," warned Oho. "Never mind. You'd better. If you get wet, you'll be soggy and can't walk. Your colors might run too, he said. Don't my colors run whenever I run? She asked. Not in the way I mean. If they get wet, the reds and greens and yellows and purples of your patches might run into each other and become just a blur, no color at all, you know? Then, said the Patchwork Girl, I'll be careful, for if I spoil my splendid colors, I would cease to be beautiful. Pah, sneered the Glass Cat. Such colors are not beautiful, they're ugly and in bad taste. Please notice that my body has no color at all. I am transparent, except for my exquisite red heart and my lovely pink brains. You can see 'em work. Shoo, 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 cried Scraps, dancing around and laughing. And your horrid green eyes, Miss Bungle. You can't see your eyes, but we can, and I notice you're very proud of what little color you have. Shoo, Miss Bungle, shoo, shoo, shoo. If you were all the colors and many colors, as I am, you'd be too stuck up for anything. She leapt over the cat and back again, and then the startled Bungle crept close to the tree to escape her. This made Scraps laugh more heartily than ever, and she said, Whoop-de-doodly-doo, the cat has lost her shoe, her tootsie's bare, and she doesn't care, so what's the odds to you? Dear me, oh, said the cat, don't you think this creature's big crazy? It may be, he answered with a puzzled look. If she continues her insults, I'll scratch off her suspender-button eyes, declared the cat. Don't quarrel, please, pleaded the boy, rising to resume the journey. Let us be good comrades and as happy and cheerful as possible, for we are likely to meet with plenty of trouble on our way. It was nearly sundown when they came to the edge of the forest and saw spread out before them a delightful landscape. There were broad blue fields stretching for miles over the valley, which was dotted everywhere with pretty blue domed houses, none of which, however, were very near to the place where they stood. Just at the point where the path left the forest stood a tiny house covered with leaves from the tree, and before this stood a Munchkin man with an axe in his hand. He seemed very much surprised when Oho and Scraps and the Glass Cat came out of the woods. But as the Patchwork Girl approached nearer, she sat down upon the bench and laughed so hard that he could not speak for a long time. This man was a woodchopper and lived all alone in his little house. He had bushily blue whiskers and merry blue eyes, and his blue clothes were quite old and worn. Mercy me! Exclaimed the woodchopper, when at last he could stop laughing. Who would think such a funny harlequin lived in the land of Oz? Where did you come from, Crazy Quilt? Do you mean me? Asked the Patchwork Girl. Of course, he replied. You must judge my ancestry. I'm not a Crazy Quilt. I'm Patchwork, she said. There's no difference, he replied, beginning to laugh again. When my old grandmother sews such things together, she calls it a crazy quilt. But I've never thought of such a jumble could come to life. It was the magic powder that did it, explained Oho. Oh, then you have come from the crooked magician on the mountain. I might have known that for, well, I declare, here's a glass cat. But the magician will get in trouble for this. It's against the law for anyone to work magic except Glinda, the good, and the Royal Wizard of Oz. If you people, or things, or glass spectacles, or crazy quilts, or whatever you are, go near the Emerald City, you'll be arrested. We're going there anyhow, declared Scraps, sitting on the bench and swinging her stuffed legs. If any of us takes a rest, we'll be arrested sure, and get no restitution, 'cause the rest we must endure. I see, said the woodchipper, nodding. You're as crazy as the crazy quilt you're made of. She really is crazy, remarked the Glass Cat. But isn't it to be wondered at when you remember how many different things she's made of? For my part, I'm made of pure glass, except my jewel heart and my pretty pink brains. Did you notice my brains, stranger? You can see 'em work. So I can, replied the woodchipper. But I can't see that they accomplish much. A glass cat is a useless sort of thing, but a patchwork girl is really useful. She makes me laugh, and laughter is the best thing in life. There was once a woodchopper friend of mine who was made of all tin, and he used to laugh every time I saw him. A tin woodchopper? Asked Oho. That's strange. My friend wasn't always tin, said the man, but he was careless with his axe and used to chop himself very badly. Whenever he lost an arm or a leg, he had it replaced with tin, so after a while, he was all tin. And could he chop wood then? Asked the boy. He could if he didn't rust his tin joints, but one day he met Dorothy in the forest and went with her to the Emerald City, where he made his fortune. He is now one of the favorites of Princess Ozma, and she has made him the Emperor of the Winkies, the country where all the country where all is yellow. Who is Dorothy? Inquired Patchwork Girl. A little maid who used to live in Kansas, but is now a princess of Oz. She's Ozma's best friend, they say, and lives with her in the royal palace. Is Dorothy made of tin? Inquired Oho. Is she patchwork like me? Inquired Scraps. No, said the man. Dorothy is flesh, just as I am. I know of only one tin person, and that is Nick Chopper, the Tin Woodman. And there will never be but one Patchwork Girl, for any magician that sees you will refuse to make another one like you. I suppose we shall see the Tin Woodman, for we are going to the country of the Winkies, said the boy. What for? Asked the wood chipper. To get the left wing of a yellow butterfly. It is a long journey, declared the man, and you will go through lonely parts of Oz and cross rivers and traverse dark forests before you get there. Suits me all right, said Scraps. I'll get a chance to see the country. You're crazy, girl. Better crawl into the rag bag and hide there, or give yourself some little girl to play with. Those who travel are likely to meet trouble. That's why I stay home. The wood chipper then invited them all to stay the night at his little hut. But they were anxious to get on, and so left him and continued along the path, which was broader now and more distinct. They expected to reach some other house before it grew dark, but twilight was brief, and Oho soon began to fear they had made a mistake in leaving the wood chopper. I can scarcely see the path, he said at last. Can you see it, Scraps? No, replied the Patchwork Girl, who was holding fast to the boy's arm so he could guide her. I can see, declared the Glass Cat. My eyes are better than yours, and my pink brain. Never mind your pink brains, please, said Oho hastily. Just run ahead and show us the way. Wait a minute, I'll tie a string to you. Then you can lead us. He got a string from his pocket and tied it around the cat's neck, and after that the creature guided them along the path. They had proceeded in this way for about an hour, when the twinkling blue light appeared ahead of them. Good, there's a house at last, cried Oho. When we reach it, the good people will surely welcome us and give us a night's lodging. But however far they walked, the light seemed to get no nearer. So by and by the cat stopped short, saying, I think the light is traveling too, and we shall never be able to catch up with it. But here's a house by the roadside, so why go farther? Where's the house, Bungle? Just here beside us, Scraps. Oho was now able to see a small house near a pathway. It was dark and silent, but the boy was tired and wanted to rest, so he went up to the door and knocked. Who is there? Cried a voice from within. I am Oho the Unlucky, and with me are Miss Scraps Patchwork and the Glass Cat, he replied. What do you want? Asked the voice. A place to sleep, said Oho. Come in then, but don't make any noise, and you must go directly to bed, returned the voice. Oho unlatched the door and entered. It was very dark inside, and he could see nothing at all. But the cat exclaimed, Why, there's no one here. There must be, said the boy. Someone spoke to me. I can see everything in the room, replied the cat, and no one is present but ourselves. But here are 3 beds, all made up, so we might as well go to sleep. What is sleep? Inquired the Patchwork Girl. It's what you do when you go to bed, said Oho. But why do you go to bed? Persisted the Patchwork Girl. Here. You're making altogether too much noise, cried the voice they had heard before. Keep quiet, strangers, and go to bed. The cat, which could see in the dark, looked sharply around for the owner of the voice, but could discover no one, although the voice had seemed close behind them. She arched her back a little and seemed afraid. Then she whispered to Oho, Come, and led him to a bed. With his hands the boy felt of the bed and found it was big and soft, with feather pillows and plenty of blankets, so he took off his shoes and hat and crept into bed. Then the cat led Scraps to another bed, and the Patchwork Girl was puzzled to know what to do with it. Just lie down and keep quiet, whispered the cat warningly. Can I sing? Said Scraps. No. Can't I whistle? Asked Scraps. No. Can't I dance till morning if I want to? Asked Scraps. You must be quiet, said the cat in a soft voice. I don't want to, replied the Patchwork Girl, speaking as loudly as usual. What right have you to order me around? if I want to talk or yell or whistle. Before she could say anything more, an unseen hand seized her firmly and threw her out of the door, which closed behind her with a sharp slam. She found herself bumping and rolling in the road, and when she got up and tried to open the door of the house again, she found it locked. "What has happened to Scraps?" asked Oho. "Never mind, let's go to sleep, or something will happen to us," answered the glass cat. So Oho snuggled down in his bed and fell asleep, and he was so tired that he never awakened till broad daylight. Yo, what's up, Kev? It's good to see you. Headache to stop. Hope you have a great night. I hope you have a great night too, Mrs. 5150, and I'm really hoping that the headache subsides. Really, really appreciate you guys being here. And yeah, I hope you're having a good night, Kev. Appreciate you again for last night on your stream. Definitely made my day. Really want to hit that 2 hour mark, y'all. Yeah, feeling much better now. So I'm just going to keep going. And if that works with y'all, got 11 of you in here, 28 likes. Appreciate it. But yeah, I'm really into the story. So I want to keep reading. Let's see. Let me go back and take a look real quick. Because if I remember correctly, there was about 28 chapters. Yep, 28. So if we read 7 a stream, then we should be able to get it done in 4 streams. Didn't expect to go 6. Yeah, 6. That was quite a long stream. Well, yeah, that's quite a long stream, man. Takes a lot of dexterity and stamina to do what we do for 6 hours plus. So yeah, it was a really good stream, man. And we're going to start chapter 7, The Troublesome Phonograph that was accidentally brought to life. So we'll read this one. This will be our last chapter to end at 7. And yeah, again, really appreciate you guys. Smash that like and tell your friends. We are so close to 1,000. And we're going to be giving away some pretty cool stuff when we get to 1,000. So The Troublesome Phonograph. We were watching you up on our TV, Uncle Kev, while Ella fills in the yeah, no worries at all. No worries at all. You do what you got to. And I really appreciate you being here always. You know that. When the boy opened his eyes the next morning, he looked carefully around the room. These small Munchkin houses seldom had more than one room in them, and that in which Oho now found himself had 3 beds, all set in a row on one side of it. The glass cat lay asleep on one bed. Oho was in the second, and the third was neatly made up and smoothed for the day. On the other side of the room was a round table on which breakfast was already placed, smoking hot. Only one chair was drawn up to the table, where a place was set for one person. No one seemed to be in the room except the boy and Bungle. Oho got up and put on his shoes, finding a toilet stand at the head of his bed. He washed his face and hands and brushed his hair. Then he went to the table and said, "I wonder if this is my breakfast." "Eat it," commanded a voice at his side, so near that Oho jumped, but no person could he see. He was hungry, and the breakfast looked good, so he sat down and ate all he wanted. Then, rising, he took his hat and wakened the glass cat. "Come on, Bungle," he said, "we must go." He cast another glance about the room, and speaking to the air, he said, "Whoever lives here has been kind to me, and I'm much obliged." There was no answer, so he took his basket and went out the door, the cat following him. In the middle of the path sat the Patchwork Girl, playing with pebbles she had picked up. "Oh, there you are!" she exclaimed cheerfully. "I thought you were never coming out. It has been daylight a long time." "What did you do all night?" asked the boy. "I sat here and watched the stars and the moon," she replied. "They're interesting. I never saw them before, you know." "Of course not," said Oho. "You were crazy to act so badly and get thrown outdoors," remarked Bungle, as they renewed their journey. "That's all right," said Scraps. "If I hadn't been thrown out, I would have not seen the stars, nor the big gray wolf." "What wolf?" inquired Oho. The one that came to the door of the house 3 times during the night. I don't see why that should be, said the boy thoughtfully. There was plenty to eat in the house, for I had fine breakfast and slept in a nice bed. Don't you feel tired? Asked the Patchwork Girl, noticing that the boy yawned. Why, yes, I'm as tired as I was last night, and yet I slept very well. And aren't you hungry? It's strange, replied Oho. I had a good breakfast, and yet I think I now eat some of my crackers and cheese. Scraps danced up and down the path, and she sang, Kizzle, cazzle, core, the wolf is at the door. There's nothing to eat but a bone without meat and a bill from the grocery store. What does that mean? Asked Oho. Don't ask me, replied Scraps. I say what comes into my head, but of course I know nothing of a grocery store or bones without meat or very much else. No, said the cat. She's stark, staring, raving crazy, and her brains can't be pink, for they don't work properly. Bother the brains, said Scraps. Who cares for 'em anyhow? Have you noticed how beautiful my patches are in the sunlight? Just then they heard a sound as of footsteps pattering along the path behind them, and all three turned to see what was coming. To their astonishment, they beheld a small, round table running as fast as its 4 spindle legs could carry it, and to the top was screwed fast a phonograph with a huge, big gold horn. Hold on, shouted the phonograph. Wait for me! Goodness me, it's the music thing. Would the crooked magician scatter the powder of life over? Said Oho. So it is, returned Bungle in a grumpy tone of voice, and then, as the phonograph overtook them, the glass cat added sternly, What are you doing here, anyhow? I've run away, said the music thing. After you left, old Dr. Pipt and I had a dreadful quarrel, and he threatened to smash me to pieces if I didn't keep quiet. Of course, I wouldn't do that, because a talking machine is supposed to talk and make a noise, and sometimes music. So I slipped out of the house while the magician was stirring his 4 kettles, and I've been running after you all night. Now that I have found you such pleasant company, I can talk and play tunes all I want. Oho was greatly annoyed by this unwelcome addition to their party. At first he didn't know what to say to the newcomer, but a little thought decided him not to make friends. We are traveling on an important business, he declared, and you'll excuse me if I say we can't be bothered. How very impolite, exclaimed the phonograph. I'm sorry, but it's true, said the boy. You'll have to go somewhere else. This is very unkind treatment, I must say, whined the phonograph in an injured tone. Everyone seems to hate me, and yet I was intended to amuse people. It isn't you we hate especially, observed the glass cat. It's your dreadful music. When I lived in the same room with you, I was much annoyed by your squeaky horn. It growls and grumbles and clicks and scratches, so spoils the music, and your machinery rumbles so that the rackets drown every tune you attempt. That isn't my fault. It's the fault of my records. I must admit I have a clear record, answered the machine, that I haven't a clear record. Just the same, you'll have to go away, said Oho. Wait a minute, cried Scraps. This music thing interests me. I remember to have heard music when I first came to life, and I would like to hear it again. What is your name, my poor abused phonograph? Victor Columbia Edison, it answered. Well, I shall call you Vic for short, said the Patchwork Girl. Go ahead and play something. It'll drive you crazy, warned the cat. I'm crazy now, according to your statement. Loosen up and reel out the music, Vic. The only record I have with me, exclaimed the phonograph, is one the magician attached just before we had our quarrel. It is highly classical composition. Oh, what? Inquired Scraps. It's classical music, and is considered the best and most puzzling ever manufactured. You're supposed to like it, whether you do or not. And if you don't, the proper thing is to look as if you did, understand? Not in the least, said Scraps. Then listen. At once the machine began to play. In a few minutes, Oho put his hands to his ears to shut out the sounds, and the cat snarled, and Scraps began to laugh. Cut it out, Vic, she said. That's enough. But the phonograph continued playing the dreary tune, so Oho seized the crank, jerked it free, and threw it onto the road. However, the moment the crank struck the ground, it bounded back to the machine again and began winding it up, and still the music played. Let's run, cried Scraps, and they all started to run down the path as fast as they could go, but the phonograph was right behind them and could run and play at the same time. It called out reproachfully,
What's the matter? Don't you love classical music? No, Vic, said Scraps, halting. We will hmm? We will passicle the classical and preserve the joy we have left. I haven't any nerves, thank goodness, but your music makes my cotton shrink. Then turn over my record. There's a ragtime tune on the other side, said the machine. What's a ragtime? The opposite of classical. All right, said Scraps, and turned over the record. The phonograph now began to play a jerky jumble of sounds which proved so bewildering that after a moment Scraps stuffed her patchwork apron into a gold horn and cried, Stop! Stop! That's the other extreme. It's extremely bad. Muffled as it was, the phonograph played on. If you don't shut off that music, I'll smash your record, threatened Oho. The music stopped at that, and the machine turned its horn from one to the other and said with great indignation, What's the matter now? Is it possible you can't appreciate ragtime? Scraps ought to, being Rags herself, said the cat, but I simply can't stand it. It makes my whiskers curl. It is indeed dreadful, exclaimed Oho with a shudder. It's enough to drive a crazy lady mad, murmured the patchwork girl. I'll tell you what, Vic, she added as she smoothed out her apron and put it on again. For some reason or another, you've missed your guess. You are not a concert nor a nuisance. You're not a concert, you're a nuisance. Music hath charms to soothe the savage beast, asserted the phonograph sadly. Then we're not savages. I advise you to go home and beg the magician's pardon. Never, he'd smash me. That's what we shall do if you stay here, Oho declared. Run along, Vic, and bother someone else, advised Scraps. Find someone who is real wicked and stay with them till he repents. In that way you can do some good in the world. The music thing turned silently away and trotted down a side path towards a distant Munchkin village. Is that the way we go? Asked Bungle anxiously. No, said Oho. I think we shall keep straight ahead, for this path is the widest and best. When we come to some house, we will inquire the way to the Emerald City. Chapter 8, The Foolish Owl and the Wise Donkey. Well, that's a brilliant place to pick up next time, isn't it? No, that's all right. I know that a lot of people are over in ALB stream right now. Otherwise, I would just keep reading until the wee hours of the night. But as we are a little late, I think we'll go ahead and call it after 7. And we're just at about that 2-hour mark. So ragtime music is bad. It is bad. And I never even thought about it being like the exact opposite of classical music. That's something that I had never thought of too much. Yeah, yeah, and I still have to eat dinner, which as my body is probably trying to tell me I could probably get some food. Yeah, absolutely, Mama. Absolutely, we can talk soon. Let me go ahead and find someone here. I might as well just go ahead and raid on back to Mr. ALB. So that's what we'll do. No, I won't. My blood sugar is good. I had Monster and coffee, so I know my blood sugar is good. But I really appreciate you, Mama Ghost. I appreciate everybody in the chat being here, hanging out tonight for this couple of hours while we read through the Patchwork Girl of Oz. I'm gonna get these voices down for better next time because I kept having to forget which voice I was using, so I'll work on that. But thank you all so much. We got 30 likes here on the stream. JB, appreciate you, brother. Let's go ahead and raid ALB if he notices that we're if he notices that we come in. I don't know how busy it is over there. I don't know if my redirects are working yet, and I'm still waiting on someone to reach out to me about it. But let me go ahead and grab this. Yeah, he's got 350 people watching.
Uh, yep, I figured that one out, Sean. I'm thinking that's exactly what happened. I just kind of overdid it with the caffeine, and uh, I had my dinner before stream, and I was like, no, I'm gonna wait, and maybe I shouldn't have waited. But I really appreciate you all. Here's where we're going in case the redirect doesn't work. We're just gonna go head over to ALB stream. Poke Ghost Raid, but really appreciate and love you all. Thank you so much for believing in ghosts, and remember to go out and get everything that you set out to get, and don't let anything stop you. But it takes $0 to be a good person. So always do it through peace, love, and Pokemon. Bye, y'all.